Hello, welcome back to the K-League United podcast, and I am joined on the line by Ryan Walters. Ryan, welcome back.
Hey, it's good to be here. And some construction just started right in time. Welcome to Bangkok, boys and girls. Oh, it stopped. Great. Nope, there it is. Hello,
No,
Matthew.
it's still deciding. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of pod setups, you were just running me through the setup you've got going on out
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
You're balancing a
It's
few things, not
uh-huh.
just workload.
No. I'm. This may or may not be recorded on a laundry rack. Who's to tell? I don't know if this one's
It,
my favorite or the one that I did in Hanoi because I really wanted like the street background.
yeah.
So I had a nightstand holding up a chair that was holding up my computer, and then I was just as today holding the microphone. So look, Southeast Asia is a special place, and I just need to
Yeah.
show it off. Yeah,
It's not all glamour, is it really? Just in case anyone's
there's
getting the
actually
wrong
very little
impression.
glamour.
But it was glamorous over the weekend and the last month because you've been, providing your usual coverage for the Mitsubishi Electric Cup. And, well, it was certainly electric going by some of the footage we've seen in the stands and things. How has the tournament been?
Exhausting, but great overall. I think. Oh, that construction's gonna kill me. I think the tournament this year, I was a little bit worried coming into it because there weren't a lot of A teams that were sent, right? Like Vietnam sent their strongest squad, and surprise, surprise, Vietnam won. But I think that allowed for a lot of really fun football. Like Timor Leste were just fun to watch. They were super enjoyable to watch their games. Um, Cambodia, I thought, was really fun to watch. Laos was really fun to watch. So all these nations that a lot of times just kind of get pummeled in this tournament, and none of them made it through to the knockout rounds, but they were really fun to watch in this one. And we've seen a changing of the guard, which is a lot of what we're going to be talking about. Um, in a lot of the big countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, there was quite a bit of a changing of the guard there. The Philippines came up and had a really strong tournament with a really young squad. So coming in, it was kind of like, it's the B teams. It's not a FIFA window, blah, 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 blah. But I think the football was really, really entertaining. And there are a ton of players on the radar now after this tournament, like really young, really talented players that I think are going to be making some moves in the region, and maybe a couple that are even going to be heading over to Korea and Japan. So, I mean, the final, whew, that was fun, So, like, um, all in all, I think it was a very enjoyable tournament.
Indeed, and well, you've kind of touched on it there. The final, it did involve one of the favourites, which was Vietnam, and we do have a vested interest from the Korean football side of things
Yeah.
with their manager, Kim Sang-sik, at the helm. Took over back in May, and well, he's landed his first piece of silverware after an exciting two legs. I mean, just going into this, then you've kind of touched on that they brought the strongest squad, so
hmm
Vietnam's success in this tournament, it was expected, I'm presuming.
I mean, I think Thailand are always going to come in as favorites. If Thailand would have won and Thailand was in the final, they hosted the second leg here in Bangkok, which is why I'm here in Bangkok. Um, and they looked good. They looked quite good, actually. But they didn't have the three horsemen, the four horsemen, actually. But like, they didn't have Tirsin Dangda, they didn't have Chanathip, they didn't have Tiratan. So they were without those veteran leaders, and that was a lot of the talking points for Thailand coming into this. But for Vietnam, according to Transfer Market, they had the most expensive squad in the tournament, so it was unquestionably their strongest team. The artist formerly known as Raphaelson, Win Son Sun, this was his first tournament, a naturalized player for Vietnam, a very, very rare thing to happen in Vietnam. Dong Van Lam and Philip Win are both, they're not naturalized, though. They're heritage players. So they came into the squad before, played at keeper. Win Son Sun being a striker, it's very rare for that to happen in Vietnam. But he was tournament MVP. He was the Golden Boot winner, and unfortunately, he snapped his leg in two in the final. The X-rays are horrifying. Wishing him all the best. Really, really nice guy, and just an absolute beast on the pitch. I mean, 7 goals in 5 games. So, but yeah, for Vietnam, they came in as one of the favorites, along with Thailand, as is the case most years in this tournament. Um, but for Vietnam, I think they came in very much saying we want to win this tournament. Like, we are aiming to win this tournament. Thailand said that as well. I mean, all the teams say that, right? But I think Vietnam backed that up with the squad that they sent and the way that they prepared, because they came to Korea for a month to get training underway, and they got that cohesion together, and I think it really showed. And credit to Kim Sang-sik for doing that.
Yeah, they tested their might against Jeonbuk's champions side, the K-League 4 side, that is. But no, it's a good point. They did spend a good amount of time over here in Kim Sang-sik's stomping ground, making use of the facilities over here, making use of the teams that were in action. I think they probably would have actually played Jeonbuk were it not for Jeonbuk's own ongoing dramas. And, yes, but no, really, good work, I guess, from Kim Sang-sik. How's he been, though? I mean, I was watching the results when he first took over the helm. I was trying to be quite positive about him going over there at the time. I discussed, his man management ability. I discussed about how likeable he is as a manager. What he was lacking his tactics, I always felt, when he was at the Jeonbuk helm. Has he fixed that, or is it just a case of continuing with that likability, that man management ability?
I think that they won this in a lot of ways, a la Real Madrid, with the power of friendship, baby. Like, I think there was a lot of cohesion on this team. I think everybody was bought into his message. I saw the players interact with him quite a bit at the official trainings, and for a lot of these matches, and I was with Vietnam for most of this tournament. I did 3 games up there. I was there for Singapore, so I've seen him with his players a lot, and there's buy-in there. Like, when he speaks, they listen, and it's not like it was with Park Hang-seo, right? Like, Uncle Park, as he's known in Vietnam, was very old school and very much direct, we shall say. A very interesting man to have in press conferences as well. But I think with Kim Sang-sik, the players respect him because he's done what they do, and he won K-League titles. And I think I've been kind of eating a bit of humble pie lately, because when he won those titles with Jeonbuk, it was like, yeah, well, you won some titles with Jeonbuk. Turns out that's not that easy to do. Turns out not everybody can do that. So, I mean, respect there. And I think with him, was it a tactical masterclass from Vietnam that got them this title? I don't think so, to be honest. I think they were sound tactically. But to me, again, it was more about how he got all the pieces to fit together. It wasn't necessarily what they were doing in the game. It was how he set them up before the game that got them in place. And I mentioned Win Son Sun. Like, he came in and immediately was just picked. Like, he was just there. He was just in sync with these guys, because I think they have a system in place that you can plug and play different players depending on what you need in each situation. And we saw the goalkeeper change a couple of times. We've seen the midfielders, the center backs, change because you have to in this tournament, because it's just such an exhausting tournament with so much travel. So you have to give that time for rest. And I think he really set the team up in a cohesive way of, like, this is how we're going to play. If we're going to pull out our central midfielder and put somebody else in, your role, what you're going to do. So I think simplicity really worked for them in this one. Like, they didn't overcomplicate things. And again, when you got a guy scoring 7 goals in 5 games, you're going to do well. And then the backup options there are Win Tianling and Win Quanghai. So, like, ooh, no, terrible. So, but I thought he did a really good job in that way. Again, it wasn't one, you're not going to mistake him for Pep. You're not. But I think he understood the assignment, and he got his team mentally in a place to succeed, and they did.
I think one thing that got slightly overlooked with him is actually how well he did in knockout football with Jeonbuk. Like, I know he had one failed FA Cup spell with them, but I think every Jeonbuk manager has been knocked out by a lower league team at some point. But he did win the FA Cup also with Jeonbuk, and he also took them to the Champions League semi-final, where he was within moments of beating Urawa Reds in their own backyard. And Yeah, he and that was a tournament where he had injuries, where the team was out of form, and he said, "Look, this is what we have. This is the state we're in, and we need to now just adapt to the state we're in and figure a way around this." And he did, and I think, like you said, a bit of humble pie, really, because it clearly the Jeonbuk job wasn't just as easy as we all figured. I think one thing I did say when he was at Jeonbuk, he did have a lot of respect off a lot of the players. A lot of players didn't want him to leave. I think that's probably carried on into his Vietnam role by the sounds of things. And well, great for him. You know, I think there was a thought that you leave Jeonbuk not winning the title and that's it. It's over. Your career's over, and it's good to see that. Well, no, actually, he was given a difficult set of circumstances, and that seems to be being proven true the more that time passes. But I mean, in terms of Kim Sang-sik now, what's next on his agenda for Vietnam in terms of objectives, in terms of what the public want from him? Because he's obviously set expectations a bit higher than perhaps they would have initially envisaged.
Yeah, I mean, the last bit that I would say on him taking over is I think he also, the timing was right, because with Philippe Trousier before him, Trousier had a style of football that he wanted to play regardless of the players that he had, and it just didn't work. And I think Kim Sang-sik looked at the players that he had and then developed a system based on that, and that's really worked out. And so now that they've had this success, and for them especially, you know, like, two-legged final, there are issues with it there. I think a grand final is always more exciting, but the performance that they had up in Viet Tri, and for those that weren't following the tournament, the final games, all of Vietnam's games were in Viet Tri, an hour and a half outside of Hanoi, where this guy spent about 2 weeks. There's not a lot going on up there, but the fans are super fun. The games were great, the atmosphere was great, and they consider that a lucky stadium, so that's not going to go away anytime soon. And with this success, I think now the focus turns to Asian Cup. It turns to, I mean, they're out of World Cup qualifying, so that one's done. So I think with this, in 25 this year, there'll be the AFF U23s. So that's another one that Vietnam is very much going to focus on, and that won't have it won't have a ton of overlap from this squad. There'll be some of the players in there, but they'll want to do well with that. They won it last time. They won it in 23. So they'll want to do well there. And then Asian Cup, I think, has to be the focus. And I think really they need to find a bit of a transition, because the golden generation that did so well in 2018, this was a really nice cap for them in a lot of ways to prove that what they did winning AMEC in 2018, getting to the finals of the U23s and AFC, the SEA Games success, everything that they had, that star had faded a bit. And so to get this title, to get this trophy is really massive. And I think that's where a lot of the love for Kim Sang-sik has come from. So from this, they need to build, they need to find that next generation, and they need to find success in Asian Cup, and they need to step outside of Southeast Asia, just like Indonesia is currently doing, like Thailand wants to do, like Vietnam wants to do. They need to, like, being the kings of ASEAN is one thing, competing in Asia is a different thing. So I think that's the next goal.
All right. Well, you actually just touched on there. You touched on my next point, Indonesia, because they also currently don't have a Korean manager at the helm in Shin Tae-yong. Yes, Korean fans of Korean football, clivert your eyes now. Doesn't really work. But Shin Tae-yong has. Hey. 2025, new puns. But yeah, Shin Tae-yong, it was announced yesterday that they have parted ways with him as manager of Indonesia. He's been there since 2020. And it turns out to be a bit of a surprise going from the reaction online.
I personally was very surprised. I think Shin Tae-yong, okay, I'll just start with the fact that I was very surprised, because I think he not necessarily turned things around, because Indonesia's had success before, but like, they are performing at a level they weren't before he showed up. And I think he's done a fantastic job of developing the youth there and bringing them up to the point that they are now the senior national team. We saw this back when it was Suzuki Cup, before it became the AFF Mitsubishi Electric Cup. He brought the kids back in 2020, and they performed really well. They went to the final, and that is still the core that's performing now. And he has fostered that growth the whole time. And in recent times, they have gone and gotten a lot more heritage players, a lot more of their Dutch connection. And apparently those players didn't like his style. So the rumors that I'm hearing is that he lost those players in the locker room because stop me if you've heard this about a Korean manager before, but he focused too much on training, and he focused too much
Yeah.
on the physical side of training. And those players didn't like that, and they weren't bought into his system. And that's where this change came from. Again, rumors. I can't confirm any of that. I unfortunately I haven't even been down to Indonesia for this tournament. I did see them in person when they came up to Vietnam. But AMEC for them was about building for the future. They sent a youth squad, so them not finding success this year, like they were kind of playing with house money anyway. So I don't think that them crashing out in the group stage had anything to do with this at all. I think it is 100% just down to philosophy. And I personally think it was a mistake. I really think it was a mistake. I think Patrick Kluivert might do a great job. He might. But I think when Shin Tae-yong gets you this far and you're doing well in World Cup qualifying, like his last senior team match in World Cup qualifying, they beat Saudi Arabia. Yeah. That's oh, you don't want him around? Like Saudi Arabia is pretty good. They're pretty good. And so I just, yeah. And Patrick Kluivert's CV is not amazing from a managerial standpoint. Like he didn't really get the job done with Curacao twice. And it's one like they've just gone all in on the Dutch connection here, and we'll see. Maybe it'll work, but I think that there must have just been so many other things going on behind the scenes, because for Shin Tae-yong to accomplish what he accomplished and just so swiftly get the boot, it doesn't really sit right. I don't think.
And I think again with Shin Tae-yong, a bit similar to Kim Sang-sik, it's kind of been a bit of a career rebuild for him. I mean, obviously he wasn't that down in the dumps after being fired or seeing the end of his contract with the Korean national team. I mean, he was always given a bit of a difficult hand with the Korean national team anyway. I don't think that he never really had a fair shot, but his tactics weren't brilliant either. But it was good, refreshing to see that he did have that capability still. I mean, he had done it at club level. There was a reason why he was approached for the Korean national team job in the first place. So I guess my final question to you kind of focuses a little bit on the bigger picture here, because we have talked at length previously about players coming, filling that ASEAN spot in K-League, but we don't talk as much about managers from K-League going out and trying to prove themselves. And we've now got Kim Sang-sik with his success, with Shin Tae-yong with his previous success, Kim Pang-gon with his previous work with Malaysia, and now success in K-League with Ulsan. I think I just want to kind of touch on that with you. The Korean coaching tree, I think you coined the term before this podcast. Why should Korean managers be looking to Southeast Asia?
It's fun. The football's more fun. Sorry, I know I'm talking to the K-League crew here, but the football's more fun. Our beloved Paul
you're so much doing... I don't need you anymore. Like you're so much. No, it's so much better over here. Like, how is the weather?
I haven't thought about Korean football in 2 months. It's fine. And I do miss K-League quite a bit, actually. Being able to ground hop in Korea is something else, and the teams are fun. Obviously, I don't have to sell K-League to the people listening to this.
No.
But I think for the coaches, the thing that I like that we've been able to see with Shin Tae-yong, with Park Hong-seo, with Kim Pang-gon, now with Kim Sang-sik, you can develop your own style a little bit more with the national teams here, because I think in K-League, and maybe this has changed since I've been gone, I'm not able to follow the league as closely as I used to, obviously, but there tends to be a lot of very similar styles of play, and the don't lose as opposed to the go out and win mentality. And I think you don't have to have that as much in
Hmm.
in tournament football, especially because like you need to go out and win these games. And I think for these managers, they've been able to kind of put their stamp on things a little bit more. So I think especially like Kim Pangong's a great example with what he did with Malaysia. They were a really fun side to watch under him, I thought, anyway. So then when he goes to Ulsan and Ulsan continues to find the success that they've been finding, no surprises there. So, and I think it's also one to just challenge yourself for Korean managers to get out of the comfort zone of K League, to get out of that coaching carousel, where like we see the same guys coming in and filling the coaching vacancies over and over and over. So get out of that and get into something a little bit different, where also, as we saw with Shin Tae-yong, you can develop an entire generation. Like you can mold a generation of players to fit your style. And the window there is there, like with all these managers that we've mentioned. I don't think there's any Southeast Asian side that wouldn't seriously consider a South Korean coach, because the success is unquestionable. um, and honestly, in a lot of ways, the race is on with Japan, and trying to get that development in place, and help develop Korean coaches at the same
Hmm.
rate that Japanese coaches are developing by coming here. And hopefully we see a few more Thai, Vietnamese, Malaysian coaches coming up and coaching the national teams as well. But to more directly answer your question, why should Korean coaches come here? Because it's a great career opportunity. Like I think, I mean, just look at Kim Sang-sik's CV now. He's won
Yeah.
K-League. Like you said, he won the FA Cup, and now he has an ASEAN Championship. Like, to me, that's more impressive than winning K League 3 or 4 times with Jeonbuk, right? Like, I think diversifying that also shows that you can do it at a different level with a different set of players, and that elevates his desirability from a club or a national team perspective. So diversify, come out here. The weather is better. The weather's better. Uh, the food's fantastic, but also there's a lot of really good Korean food in Vietnam. So I was eating a ton of Korean food when I was there. So um, that's a different podcast, though. But no, I think it's just a really good career development strategy for Korean coaches, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I have to agree. I think it's just good for managers to break out of their current comfort zone,
Mm-hmm.
break out of the actual Korean media cycle, take that spotlight off
Mm-hmm.
them, actually allow them to express themselves, and at the same time get plenty of adulation, plenty of appreciation as well in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Kim Sang-sik's stock has certainly rose, and hopefully it continues to rise, and maybe we'll see him back in Korea one day doing something, hopefully not with FC Seoul, but another team at some point.
Oh, I thought you were saying beating the Taeguk Warriors up in Seoul.
Oh
Could
well,
happen. I will also
could
say the
very.
last thing I'll say on it is that there are a ton of Korean flags in the Vietnamese supporter section. So
Mm-hmm.
along with all the Vietnamese flags, you can, for every 10 Vietnamese flags, you can spot like 2 or 3 Korean flags out there as well. And some of the players had the taekuki wrapped around their shoulders after the game. So like the connection between Korea and Vietnam is super strong. There's a lot of love there. And I think that's another reason for coaches to consider making that jump.
Yeah, I fully agree. I fully agree. And well, I'm going to let you get out of there on that positive note, Ryan. I'm sure you've got plenty of things to be getting on with. And well, pleasure as always catching up with you. What's your downtime looking like now after another hectic tournament?
What is downtime? I don't understand. AMEC finished on Sunday. Shopee Cup continues on Wednesday. So, so yeah, if you were able to tune in to AMEC and enjoy the national team football, which I hope you did, club team football is super fun here as well. And Shopee Cup is
Mm-hmm.
an ASEAN only tournament. ACL2 has been outstanding. It's been super
Oh, it
fun.
does. Yeah.
So if you've liked some of the ASEAN sides there, and they've done quite well, especially the Thai sides, um, tune into Shopee Cup. It's fun. From a casual perspective, there are 3 matches simultaneously. For those of us covering it, it's a nightmare. But for you,
Yeah.
the fan watching it, it's super fun. And these teams are a lot of fun. And Win Sun Sun, you could have seen him in these kind of tournaments. You know, he plays for Nam Ding. So if you want to see some international talent, they're on display. Shopee Cup, super fun.
Ryan, pleasure as always, and yeah, we'll be catching up soon.
Thank you.